Very telling. Even if he doesn't, we will not bow down. So notice there's no condition. He can do it, and we believe he will, but even if he doesn't, we're going to still do what we're called to do. And that's the important point. You see, so they were ready for either way. They could go with changing circumstances, he's delivering us, or unchanging, even if he doesn't. But he'll deliver us out of it in that case, you see. In that case, he'll deliver us to the other, safely to the other side. And this is a mindset of victory for God against Satan, is when one by one, God's people continue to love him, continue to trust him in the midst of these unchanging circumstances. And in my view, no one person can really experience all those kinds of things. In fact, each person has a unique combination, it seems, in their own life. And I have a feeling that, like with Job, you have God being able to say that here's a person who trusted me in spite of A, B, C, and D. Here's another person over here who trusted me in spite of E, F, G, and H, and so forth. You see you see the concept there? That each person throughout history, there's been no combination of adversity where some saint has not trusted God, just as Job trusted God even though he lost everything. So God, I think, is using this. There is this imagery then. That this matters, and that this is related to God's own joy and God's own reputation, and that when God is going to be glorified in our lives, and we then will be satisfied. So it's a question of trusting him in the midst of this adversity. That reminded me this morning of the Screw Tape letters. My favorite of those letters is letter number 8. And I wanted to walk you through just a few bits from that because it's so rich. It deals with this issue of the ups and downs of life and the uncertainties of life. He calls it the law of undulation, that there's some times that things are going well, then there's the trough times when things go poorly. And my dear Wormwood, it begins, so you have great hopes that the patient's religious phase is dying away, have you? I have always thought the training college has gone to pieces since they put old Slubgob at the head of it, and now I am sure. Has no one ever told you about the law of undulation? You do understand, of course, that this is written by a demon. When this first came out, it was done in a serialized way in a publication, a magazine. And one of the writers complained and said, you know, I don't know about these articles. Some of the advice seems positively diabolical. They missed the whole point. It is diabolical. Screw Tape is a demon, and he's writing to a junior devil, Wormwood. And he's referring to the training college. Things it's not the way they used to be at the demonic training college, because you've missed the whole point. Just because he is going through a trough, a tough time, doesn't mean that we've got him where we want him. That's simplistic. Humans are amphibians. This is one of his great images. Humans are amphibians, and that's what you are. You're half spirit and half animal. The enemy's determination to produce such a revolting hybrid, I love that image, is one of the things that determined our Father to withdraw his support from him. In other words, part of the basis for the satanic fall was that image of what he was going to do to create a new kind of creature that would eventually actually be superior to the angels themselves. As spirits, they belong to the eternal world, but as animals, they inhabit time. This means that while their spirit can be directed to an eternal object, their bodies, passions, and imaginations are in continual change. For to be in time means to change. And then he discusses what that means and what that looks like. And where the fact is that God, who is called the enemy, actually relies on the troughs even more than on the peaks. Some of his spiritual favorites have gone through longer and deeper troughs than anyone else. You see what he's saying here? That actually, many times, what appears to be a time when a person's going to abandon him may actually be a time that God's using to develop them more profoundly than any other time. And this is an important thing. He goes on to write, to us a human is primarily food. Our aim is the absorption of the of its will into ours, the increase of our own area of selfhood at its expense. But the obedience which the enemy demands, again the enemy being God, of men, is quite a different thing. One must face the fact that all the talk about his love for men and his service being perfect freedom is not, as one would gladly believe, mere propaganda, but an appalling truth. He really does want to fill the universe with a lot of loathsome little replicas of himself. See, God's intention, from their point of view, is to fill him with loathsome replicas of himself who have not been absorbed by him, but rather who are liberated by him to become the people they were always intended to be. You see, that's part of salvation, is to become the person, by God's power, that God always intended to be. You do not have that power to bring that about yourself. Unaided by him, you do not have the power, the ability to do that. Loathsome little replicas of himself, creatures whose life on its miniature scale will be quantitatively like his own. Not because he has absorbed them, but because their wills freely conform to his. And this is where you get right down to the issue. When you are suffering adversity, everything depends on your will. Everything depends on your choice. How you're going to get to look at people. And I had an interesting process last night where I realized, for example, along these lines, that there's been a litany of people, and we've all had people that we can be resentful toward because of their mistreatment of us or because of a number of things that they have done. And I realized I just had to once again go through the exercise of letting them go and blessing every one of them before God. Just choosing, though I don't feel like it, to choose to lift each of those people up and to bless, and you get this blessed relief, the loss of resentment and so forth, and you get a new perspective on life. And that, if you haven't done that lately, because you'll discover that those resentments resurface as time. And this is a process; it's never fully over. And the more you were injured by another person, the longer that process will require, in my view. But at any rate, I think it's a good thing for us to do. It's a choice that you can make where I let loose of this, and I actually bless those who curse you. Bless and curse not, you see. And that is really a thing that is a manifestation of the Spirit of God in you, and you can choose to walk that way. He wants servants who can finally become sons. We want to suck in, he wants to give out. We are empty and would be filled, he is full and flows over. Isn't that a beautiful metaphor, though? You see, he doesn't need us. He's already full. Instead, his love is the overflow of his character and of the Trinitarian union. And if you want to see what that overflow looks like, read John 17, Jesus' high priestly prayer, which is the whole point of it, is that the love that you have given to me may be in them and I in them. And this is an image then of a love that continues to flow and overflow. It's an artesian well, to use the imagery of John 4, that overflows into eternal life. Our war aim is a world in which our Father below has drawn all other beings into himself. The enemy wants a world full of beings united to him but still distinct. See, that's the error in Eastern religion, is the idea of the loss of the distinction between the one who made us and ourselves, so that we become absorbed into the all that is. And the last time I meditated on that concept, I didn't find it to be a richly relational image. Just to be absorbed as a drop in the ocean of being. There's no basis for relationship there. You see, you're just a part of all it is. And at first blush, it sounds really great, to be a part of the all. But really, all you're doing is integrating yourself downward. And what you have here is a religion that effectively brings us down to a kind of a nature mysticism in which we become the all with the sea of being. You see, but what we're doing there is defining ourselves downward. The Scriptures invite us to define ourselves upward. The one who made us is above the natural world, spoke that into being, sustains it and rules it and orders it, and invites us to be people who, under his loving authority, become co-rulers and heirs with him. So he has a rich purpose, that you will be immersed in him, but not absorbed by him. And you notice the important distinction. One writer put it this way, Thomas Dubay. He says that you have been created and redeemed for the eternal ecstasy of interpersonal immersion in the triune Godhead.